Especially as a musician, I don't want to force my kids to learn an instrument. I want them to do it on their own. I want them to find something on their own that they enjoy doing.
What's up, everybody? Eddy here for the Life of Dad show, and with me, of course, my co-host, the one and only Jon Finkel. What's up, man?
I am very excited for today's show, as I always am with all our shows, but in particular, I am excited today.
Your tissues ready?
I don't know. I have a lemon, which we'll figure out later why we need that. But, like I say in the show, I don't cry. I work out a lot, so I don't have to really worry about it. But for those of you who have been shedding a tear on many a Tuesday night, or maybe you're sitting with your wife watching like the best non-cable TV juggernaut called This Is Us, this show is for you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. We're talking with Jon's buddy, Sid Khosla. He's the guy that brings the music into the show and makes you even more weepy and sad and filled with lemons that were, I don't know. Yeah, you're going to find that in a second, but this is a really cool thing, not only because it's Jon's friend, but I'm into soundtracks. Like you'll hear that I listen to Pandora when I'm working, and I'll listen to like a Star Wars soundtrack here and there. So I'm big on soundtracks. I'm big on music, like everybody else. But like for me, soundtracks are huge. So actually talking to a composer and how he gets things ready and how he gets things right. And I love the fact that he almost has like the spider sense when he knows when a track is ready, which you'll hear.
The cool thing about it is like people listening, he gives a little bit of kind of guitar riff on how he comes up with the stuff for the show. And like, so I've been listening to his music, his old band, or his band Goldspot, for, I don't know how long the band's been around, but it's gotta be a while. I've known him for almost 20 years. And now, he's making this music, and, let's not leave out that he's got like 3 kids under 5. So he's like, gives us some awesome tips on how to get your kids into music and how to learn music. And he has some interesting songs that his kids are into now that are playing and forcing him to kind of rethink music, rethink what to teach music. It's a real good time.
Yeah, it's a really fun show. Let's get into our interview with Sid Khosla here on the Life of Dad show. Hey everybody, Eddy and Jon Finkel here for the Life of Dad show, and online we're very happy to have Sid Khosla. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us, Sid. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Sid, I am personally excited to have you on the show. I've obviously known you for a long time and been a fan of yours and Gold Spots, which is, your band forever. And I always, talk to all our friends and stuff like that. But what I want to ask you is, for people who don't know who you are, you're sort of the man behind like the juggernaut music of the show This Is Us. And so I wanted to ask you, what's it like to make like 20 million people cry every week?
It's very depressing. It's pretty awesome. I'm the composer for This Is Us and write all the original music for the show. Yeah, it's just one of those. I've been a musician for a long time and started out in a band, and to have this gig right now at this time of my life is a beautiful thing to have, and it's pretty awesome. I'm glad we make 20 million people cry. That's kind of what helps keep the show on the air.
I love the fact that last year when you used the hashtag This Is Us, it was a tissue box. Now it's a lemon.
Yes, somebody at NBC changed up the game a little bit this season. They're like yeah, we have to. I don't know what that was, but I've noticed that too. I'm still trying to figure out why we changed from tissue box to lemon. Maybe they're just maybe we don't want to be known as the show that makes everyone cry anymore or something.
Well, the funny thing is about the show is, like, I remember hearing about it, obviously, because we're friends, and we're friends with Dan, who's the creator of the show, and it became this thing, and the trailer came out and had, like, a zillion views, and now the show actually kind of like LeBron, where, like, there was all this hype, and it actually is delivering on all the hype, and then you're responsible from each season to get the music right. I was wondering, does each season have a different tone? I mean, I watched the show, but obviously you've seen the scripts way before they're ever even shot. Like, what's your mentality going into each season, or how do you break it up between, like, when the holidays come and then the May sweeps and all that kind of stuff, sort of emotionally from a music standpoint?
I mean, it's a pretty big undertaking, scoring the show, and just as a process, the way it works is, like, I start working basically in August on the show, and I go all the way through March. That's kind of our schedule. And, there's like a little bit of time off here and there for like the holidays. And as the composer, you kind of get the least amount of time, one of the least amounts of time off on shows like this, because, editors kind of have a strict schedule when they work. I get thrown these episodes of the show with no music on, and I have to deliver them back with music on. And
right.
Oftentimes, I'll get an episode of This Is Us on like December 20th, and they're like, well, we're mixing the episode on January 3rd. So, so inevitably I'm kind of like, I got to stay and work, so I go away and spend some time with the family, in whatever limited capacity that is. And I'm kind of like, basically it feels like I'm working on the show, nonstop. And honestly, I love it. It's like, it's the best gig I've ever had. And just the way it works is I get sent an episode of the show with nothing on it, just the performances and early cuts sometimes. And I talk through with sometimes with Dan Fogelman, who created the show, Dan, our buddy, and or with the editors or directors or producers, and just kind of figure out where we need music, and then write all the original score for it.
Yeah, not only do you do This Is Us, you do Marvel and Hulu's Runaways, ABC's The Kids Are All Right, and also The Royals. My wife loves that show on E. She's always like watching. That's like one of her guilty pleasures. So I'll have to tell her that,
well, I'm gonna make your this is gonna make your wife cry, but The Royals got canceled this recently.
Oh no!
Yeah, so I'm making more people cry now. Yeah, so it just got canceled.
Even without music this time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'll definitely tell you that. But here's the thing, man. I gotta say, like, when John told me to bring you on, it was great, because in my office I'll kind of listen to like on Pandora or whatever, and I'll just kind of have soundtracks, because I'm a big like Star Wars geek, and I love I love John Williams' music, the scores and all that. For you get that blank canvas. John was saying like the whole idea of like This Is Us living up to the hype. One of the guys here at Life of Dad, one of the founders, Ryan Hamilton, he grew up with Sterling K. Brown. So I feel like there's a lot of 6 degrees of separation between This Is Us and me, because Ryan knows Sterling, and then obviously John knows you. But I remember I interviewed Sterling for the premiere, and I couldn't say anything until after the premiere, because it was like 2 weeks before they were going to do it on NBC, and I was like, man, this is going to be a huge hit. It pulled on all my heartstrings and all that. I was like, wow, this is going to be a great show. And like everybody like, around me is like, you got the interview, like, Sterling K. Brown, that's awesome. Like, yeah, and it was like, I mentioned like how I knew how I knew Sterling through my friend Ryan. They're like, that's great. But I'm watching the show the first time, I'm like, giving me goosebumps, pulling out the heartstrings, and I was like, man, this is a hit show. Until maybe you watch it the second time or third time, you almost sometimes forget, even though you hear the music, you forget that it's there.
Right.
But especially with you and this show and like the popularity of the show, you got a balance of, I think, maybe you should tell me, but I feel like you have to balance not overextending the music, but making it just right so it fits in where people are listening to it, but not it's not overdone. Am I correct in that, or no?
That's like the best compliment you could give a composer, so thank you. And for me, that's a big compliment, because the music on a show or music on a film, in my mind, should be something that, like in a show like this, you want it to kind of live under the skin. It's something that you feel. Yeah. You obviously hear it when you're paying attention to it. You don't want it to be distracting. You want it to kind of support what's happening. And kind of telling Dan the other day, we were talking about process, Dan Fogelman, who created the show, and I was telling him, I said, I don't turn in any music unless I feel this tingle in my spine as I'm recording and playing my acoustic guitar, because the whole show is, a lot of it is, here, hang on, let me get my in my studio, but like so much of the show is kind of me, like, just plucking my acoustic, it's a lot of plucking my acoustic, and a lot of that, and that's kind of become the signature sound of the show, is when you hear that. And so when I'm working on music on the show, I really I just want to feel like the hair raising on my arm or the tingle in my spine, or something that kind of just like, just gets you emotional a little bit. And I don't turn in cues unless I feel that way. And yes, it is. You want, on a show like this, I could have easily gone with like a big orchestral sweeping sound to the show with an orchestra or something big. And I think it wouldn't have felt authentic to the show, because the show is steeped in reality. It feels very real, the way it's shot, the way it's edited. you're right in people's faces. It's very personal. It feels like it's your own family sometimes. It feels like you're in your own living room sometimes. And so I wanted the music of the show to feel like it was created in the actual space they were living in. And to me, that was my acoustic guitar. It was, I play the percussion on my wooden table in my studio, I'm like banging on my table, like,
right.
That's all I'm doing. And singing and playing cello. I have a cellist come in, but it's all stuff that feels like it's created at home. And that's part of the charm. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's definitely the intention.
Jumping in on like what you were saying for the large orchestral things, the things that work or don't work. One of the things that I think is so hard to do, which obviously you do well, but it's like for some movies where they use bands like Explosions in the Sky or things like that, where they turn sort of regular moments and they give them that weight and that gravity with then they use all the different kinds of instruments and things like that. Right. For you, like, are there times where you realize like I'm turning like what could be a stare by Sterling into the window into this super heavy moment? Like you kind of have the power as you're looking through it of like adding weight to a scene that maybe it's not there. And I was wondering kind of when you're looking at those scripts and reading them, like you have the ability to turn a regular scene into this super heavy scene or a heavy scene into like a whimsical scene.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's kind of it's a daunting task on many levels, because as we've gone from season 1 to 2 and now we're in 3, the show has found its voice, not just for the writers of the show, but also in terms of like the vibe and feel and the music of the show. It's found it's kind of we've hit a stride, and we've found our footing, and because of that now I'm finding more and more that Dan and the writers are leaning on the music to carry certain scenes. Like I'm getting silent montages all of a sudden, way more than I ever got before, where it's like 2 minutes and it's just silence. And they're like, hey, write some music for this. Whereas season
make us feel, Sid.
Yeah, make us cry. And I think there is, in season 1, we did some of that. We didn't do as much of it as we're doing now, but because I think now there's like a tone and a voice that was discovered, and there's a sound of the show that feels very much that's so important to the show that we lean on it now sometimes, and it's a lot of fun for me. And those are the moments I can be wider and cinematic and bigger without having to employ an orchestra. It's a dream gig because it's one of those shows where I feel like, when I was in a band for many, many years and I got spoiled, I was kind of like, I had a lot of like early love from like taste-making radio stations on my music. My music never became this huge hit. Like it was never like a band that blew up, but it was a band that had some, like, it was like we lived in kind of that NPR space, that was where the love came. And I think I was just always used to kind of making art that I believed in. And when you start working in television and film, it's a different way to make music, because all of a sudden you're like, you're feeding the vision of a director or a producer or someone else other than yourself. And oftentimes, because of that, sometimes the art gets compromised a little bit. And someone's like, oh, we want you to sound like Explosions in the Sky, for example. Or we want you to sound like this because it's been done before. On this show, it doesn't happen that way. Dan was kind of like, do your thing. Let's just see what's coming naturally out of you. And I think that's part of the charm of the show, that everyone's kind of like giving their own little piece of themselves into it. And that's why it's resonating, I think, with people.
Nice.
One of the things, Sid, obviously, we are Life's Dad, and you've got 3 kids at home, 5 and under. So we'll get into a little of the craziness of transitioning from you trying to make people feel to walking in the door with kids and tantrums and diapers and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things we like to do when we have a guest on like you, who's such sort of an expert in a certain area, is give dads kind of tips and things that they have on how they can kind of maybe do things within their household. And obviously learning an instrument, whether it's, piano or guitar, is something that is pretty much on most guys' bucket list at some point in time. And, you always think, if I can just get my kid into instruments earlier, they'll already have a leg up because they'll know how to do it. So it's kind of a short 2-part question. But one, is it easier to learn, something like the guitar when your kid's, 5, 6, 7, or what's the age for that? And then the follow-up to that is, what are some kind of easy kind of tips that you could maybe have if you're going to bring a guitar into the house and you have you and your 5 or 6-year-old kind of learning at the same time, or maybe even a little older? What are some tips that you have, easy ways to learn with a kid to maybe learn an instrument together?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. You know, I'm kind of going through that on some level with my kids. I mean, I have a 5-year-old daughter. We have a bunch of our friends in the area. Like, everyone's got their kids in some music class or the other. If someone's got, like, everyone's, like, kids are already, like, learning piano at, like, 3 or 4, you know, and it's, there's a little bit of, this, like, it's a tiger parent thing that I'm recognizing happening a lot amongst our friends. Like, everyone wants to get their kids involved in tons of activities. And I think there's something good about that, and there's something bad about that at the same time. And, you know, I think I grew up in an immigrant family my parents came to this country in 1976. So I kind of had these immigrant parents from India that came with $8 in their pockets, and they struggled to make ends meet. And I was kind of like the experiment for them. And so they drove me really hard to do well in school, to study. And I ended up doing fine in school, but on some level it backfired sometimes, you know. They wanted me to be a doctor, and I became a musician, right? So it was like I rebelled, but in a good way, you know, where I was just like, I found some other path with nothing to do with what they tried to make me learn when I was a kid, though what they taught me gave me the tools to apply to my music, or like the work ethic that I bring to my work now comes from my parents driving me when I was a kid, right? So to me, it's more about the larger lessons you're teaching your kids. It's not so much make sure they learn piano at 4 or make sure they start picking up a guitar at 5. It's if they're going to learn piano or if they're going to learn guitar, then they should practice it. There should be a discipline to it where they know that they can do it on a regular basis. That's easier said than done too, because like I know that's my dream answer. Daughter, who's 5, we have her in a piano class, and the piano teacher comes over here once a week to my studio, and she goes, and we never practice, and it's because we're so busy with our schedule. She's busy with her schedule, but the way I've framed it with the teacher is, I'm not going to force her. I want to see if she likes music on her own, because as a kid, I found myself sometimes forced to do things that I didn't really enjoy. And my parents were like, do this, like in terms of work and studying, and it backfired on some level, right? So for me, I kind of don't, especially as a musician, I don't want to force my kids to learn an instrument. I want them to do it on their own. I want them to find something on their own that they enjoy doing, and then say, okay, she's really good at that, or he's really good at that, and let me now nurture that a little bit more. It's a convoluted answer I just gave you. There's like the dream answer is like, okay, if you are going to put your kids in a class, your dream thing is teach them the discipline about doing it. And if you're successful there, more power to you. And if you're not successful with it, okay, here's what I did with my daughter in the piano class is this. I found my daughter loves to sing, right? She's always singing. Since she was like 2 or 3, since she started like talking, she's been singing. And she comes into my recording studio all the time. And I will just put up a microphone and I'll just start playing piano, and she'll just start singing some silly songs over it. And that's like the best education for her in music. And when the piano teacher comes over, I told the piano teacher, I was like, listen, if she doesn't want to learn piano, I know this is a piano class. I was like, but she wants to sing. I was like, let her sing. And the teacher's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. So my daughter in this piano class ends up singing like Katy Perry with her for 45 minutes, as opposed to learning, you know, what middle C is and learning how to play piano. Because I'd rather her find love in it, you know, than force her to do something, especially with how much stuff we've got them in, you know, and with school and like ballet and all God knows what else we do, you know. So yeah. I think the lesson is like find things that they enjoy, even within the class that they might, you might be in a piano class, but you might find that your kid likes to sing, and find a piano teacher that's going to encourage them to do something in music, or your son or daughter wants to play drums early. You just have to, you know, figure out what that is.
If they do like it, I think there's the first hurdle is, do they like it? I have that with my son. He wants to play softball, then he plays or baseball, t-ball. As soon as he starts that, it's on soccer and it's whatever else. And so with instruments, it's different because you can have, you know, we have a keyboard in the house, right? It's here. You know, we take some lessons, and you know, there's easy lessons online that you can take. And I'll sit with my daughter and we'll kind of peck at the board a little bit. I've considered, we have a couple neighbors who have guitars lying around where kids pick it up. So part two is like, if you're over that hurdle where you're like, man, my kid's always picking up the guitar, or my daughter will sit down at the keyboard, what are some tips that you can get of actually having them maybe, you know, again, just get to a point where they're enjoying practice and getting better at it?
I think what you said that the fact that you have like a keyboard in the house, I think that's the most important thing. I think having the access to the instrument is huge. I found, you know, my wife and I and kids, we were in Jersey City up until like 2 years ago in New Jersey, and we moved out to LA 2 years ago so I could start doing more of my scoring and stuff from here. And when we were back east, my parents lived near us, and at my parents' house, you know, in the basement was like my old drum set, and we had a piano in like the middle of their living room, and we would go to my parents' house all the time, and every time we would go, just by virtue of those instruments being in your face, the kids would the first thing they would do is go downstairs and start like banging on the drums for an hour, or playing on the piano. But now since we moved to LA, I have all my gear in my studio now. And I don't have the stuff sitting in the house as much because we don't have the room. I don't have room for a big grand piano. Like if we do, it's like it's gonna, you know, it's just the house is filled with stuff. So as you're saying, it's making me think I want to get a little keyboard now for like the kids' room just so they can have. We have little like karaoke toys and things like that for them to play with. But having something in the house is the most important thing because the access is there, right? So that's one thing. You could even if you have space in your house for like, I don't know, like an old nursery that's no longer a nursery, make it like a small little music room. Put like a little drum kit in there. Like you can buy kids drum kits on Craigslist for like $50, $20. People are giving away that stuff for free all the time. And just having that in the house is important. As far as guitars, you can go to Guitar Center and get like a really cheap Fender electric guitar with a tiny little amp, and that'll cost you like $100, you know, $150. It's not inexpensive, not too expensive. It's obviously all relative, but you can have something like that sitting around the house. You know, kids seeing it every day makes a big difference. I mean, we've got like my wife recently bought this like little art table in our house. And so it's like a tiny little table dedicated to the kids just to do artwork. And since she's bought it, my 3-year-old son, my 5-year-old daughter, they spend like an hour a day just drawing and making things. And it's all because the access is there, right? So I think having something in the house that they see constantly is important.
Do you think they need to play like, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb and all that stuff? Or I've read and seen some courses online where the kids can, you know, they have programs now, especially with, you know, with the using your laptop or whatever, where, you know, a kid can learn a song that maybe even, you know, my daughter's 7, so she's not learning too advanced stuff, but like they can learn pop culture music, and the songs that they're learning, like you said, are a Katy Perry song as opposed to, you know, Hot Cross Buns over and over and over again.
Yeah, right. You know, honestly, that's another way you kind of you build the excitement around the learning. You know, if your kids are into listening to music, I mean, you know, in the car, like, I mean, I can't tell you. The other day we were driving the car. The song's been around for a while. We listened to "Roar" by Katy Perry, literally like 10 times in a row. I wanted to like pull the car over on the side of the road and get out. You can look at that and then say, okay, she loves Katy Perry. She does not like practicing piano. She does not want to practice singing. Like she doesn't want to like go through the time every day. We don't have the time to practice singing every single day. But let me tell the teacher now, hey, let her learn a Katy Perry song because she loves listening to Katy Perry. And that's how you that's where you get the joy comes in, you know? And I support learning songs like in pop culture, or songs that they listen to, or songs that you listen to. I love listening to the Beatles in the car. And now my daughter's like, I want to learn Hey Jude, you know? And honestly, the only way she's going to learn piano and start practicing is if she can actually play Hey Jude, you know? So I'm finding that that those are the ways, you know, it's with any kind of learning, you know, there's got to be some joy and excitement around it, you know? And definitely I would encourage that. And there's so many great simple songs that are easy to play. All these pop songs, like Roar is a very simple song. If you looked at like a guitar tab online or or chord chart. It's a very simple song, you know, and Hey Jude is literally like, you know, for the verses, they're like 2 chords back and forth over and over again. There's simplicity in a lot of the stuff that can apply to your kids.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I just need to get my kid close to learning Thunder Road, and I'll be happy.
Good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
How old are your kids, Finkel?
7 and 5. My son will be 6 in February.
7 and 5. And Art, you have kids?
Yeah, 8 and 10, 2 girls. And it's funny, just talking about like hot cross buns. My oldest, a couple years ago, they started doing the recorder thing. I think my youngest is going to be getting into that now too, and like hot cross buns and some other things. And actually, like they were playing some other songs that weren't just the hot cross buns, like duh, duh, duh. So like I was like, all right, I do see some musical talent. I know my oldest, she loves to sing, and my wife's been talking about getting a keyboard or a piano because they had a piano when she was growing up in her house. So that's one of the things on the bucket list, I guess, for us to do. But this is great because I can share, obviously, your thoughts with my wife about, you know, how we can get that done and kind of go from there. So awesome, man.
The keyboard is the best thing. I mean, you can put like these keyboards are not very big. They don't take up much room. You just need a keyboard, you need a keyboard stand. And sometimes there's built-in speakers in the keyboard where you don't have to buy a little amp either. And it doesn't take up that much room. It's like the tiniest console table in your house. And to me, that's important. And you're also, it seems like Art, more than either of us, you're approaching an age now where, especially if your daughter likes to sing, you might start getting into like, you know, the kids could start like meeting other musicians in their classes and they can start a band, you know, like they're approaching that age at 10. It's a little early, but I was in my first band, I think at like 13 or 14. And we were a terrible band. There's a camaraderie that starts to develop as like you start in the tween teenager years with other musician kids, and that's such an important, and that's where so much of my growth came musically, you know, was like my buddies in my high school band that I started, you know, that was really it. So that you're approaching that soon. I mean, you're still a ways away, but or actually middle school. I did it in middle school.
Yeah,
as well.
One more year, and then she'll, like next year she'll be in middle school. So yeah, it's happening. I mean, they started book clubs, and she wants to get into acting. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff where she wants to, you know, experiment and test out and like different things. And right now, like, you know, of course, got them into the sports. Right now, I'm coaching her basketball team, so she's liking that. And yeah, we'll see what happens with both of them. They've done dance, they've done all that stuff, but I think maybe now getting an instrument in their hands is something that we should definitely do.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, and I guess when I think about like the larger picture too, it's just like, I don't know. I think about my mom when I was younger, and she was like, she forced me to sing all the time. Like every Sunday I would go to we grew up Hindu, and we were a Hindu temple, and I sang in front of our temple congregation every Sunday, like 150 people, and I was 7 years old, and it scared the living hell out of me every Sunday, but. You know, I look back now and I'm like, I'm so glad that she did that, because when I started singing in front of people later on in life in my band, I was confident. I was never scared. And I had this like, I was like, if I can impress like 150 like old Indian people, I can I can do that with like people that I'm friends with and people that are like my age. And so, you know, it's important to get your kids involved in music when they're younger. And in whatever way you want to, whether it's like you find the thing that they love and you do that, or you teach them the discipline within the thing you want to teach them. So one of those I think are important.
Nice. Love it. 2 questions before I hit you up with a Life of Dad quick 5. Talk about the first time you found out you're going to be a dad, man. What was kind of going through your mind?
We were thrilled. It took us a while to have kids, and we tried for many, many years. So for us, it was like, there was no surprise. Like it was kind of planned, you know, through the grace of science, you know, and, you know, we had IVF kids. And so for us, it was more relief than anything else that it was going to work out for us. I came to it from a different perspective than like, oh man, we got pregnant. What are we going to do? Like, you know, for us, it was like, we were like waiting, hoping it was going to happen. So for us, it was, that kind of was in the equation in our hearts and minds going into it. And then when my daughter was born, all I wanted to do was like sing to her constantly, because I wanted her to love music. And I was like, I'm just gonna just have her listen to music, and it was a special time in our life. We felt incredibly fortunate, and then also like you wanted to just do whatever you could be to be the perfect dad, even though you're never the perfect dad. You try.
That is true, man. With that, I know you're kind of sharing some stuff, and but like in regards to advice for new dads listening to this, what is one big piece of advice you'd like to offer to them?
The thing that I have to remind myself every day when I wake up, and I'm trying to do it more and more, is really listen to your kids. It's very easy for us to kind of get consumed in our own work and our own stuff we're doing, and like the whole composing career where I'm on multiple shows and movies and tons of other stuff I'm trying to get done. When kids are little, like they're only little once, and you have that opportunity to really that's such a formative stage in their life, and you need to listen to them and pay so much attention to them. And I say it because I want to be better at that myself, because I'm so consumed with my work half the time. But these are moments you never get back, and I'm realizing it now as my daughter's. She's only 5, but I'm still realizing. I'm looking at the pictures on our fridge. Every day I see these pictures on our fridge. We all have those, right?
Yeah.
Or they're around the house where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe she looked like that a year ago or 2 years ago. And savor that moment. It's not a lot of investment for like first few years of just like really listening and being there for your kids, in the grand scheme of things. It's the right investment.
No doubt. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. And I think we all strive to try and, be there and, try and do that work-life balance. So well said on that. Now we're going to finish off with Life of Dad Quick 5. Favorite family movie right now in your household is?
Ooh, favorite family, The Incredibles.
Nice.
Part 2. Was it part 2, I think? Is that the last one?
Yeah,
the last
one
one
came out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Math is math. Why are they changing math? That is so true. Do you guys have a favorite? And this is, maybe it might be Katy Perry from what we were talking earlier, but do you guys have a favorite song right now that you guys like to sing and dance to as a family?
Yes. Oh, what was that song? Favorite song we like to sing and dance to as a family. Oh, my goodness. The artist. I guess Roar is like, even though it's like, the song's been out for a while. Roar is the thing we listen to more than anything else. It's approached painful now. But the band is AJR, and Sober Up. It's called Sober Up by AJR. That's the song like we put on, the song's been around for a year, so I love that song too. It's like it's just one of those pop songs that even like a snobby, musician like myself actually likes. The lyrics are, "Won't you help me sober up?" And it's about like addiction on some level, and it's just my kids are just singing it at the top of their lungs and having no idea what those lyrics actually mean. It's great. I love that song, and we all dance to it.
Nice,
AJR,
man.
Sober Up.
Love that. Very cool. Describe the perfect family vacation. Where would it be?
Perfect family vacation in a hotel somewhere in Southern California, along the beach, where we can just order room service into the room and never leave the room.
Nice.
With the kids.
Yeah, there you go. Was there a composer or a musical artist that influenced you to kind of get into your career? Obviously you were in a band, and then it kind of went into writing soundtracks and all that for TV shows. But
yep.
Was there someone that inspired you at a young age, or maybe when you were looking to get into this field, you kind of started listening more to their work?
Yeah, it was the Beatles. I'm just a massive Beatles fan, and they were always the inspiration for me. They taught me how to write songs and taught me how to write songs simply. The songs are very simple. Yeah. They taught me like how important melody is, and I apply that as much as I possibly can in my work. The Beatles.
Nice. And favorite movie or show soundtrack of all time is what?
Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks had the best score ever. Angelo Badalamenti. It was like the eeriest, most beautiful cinematic score I've heard on, and it was simple too. Nice. It was a great piece of music. All the score was amazing on that.
Where can people find you on social media?
At Sid Khosla Music on Twitter. I think that's the same thing for Instagram. I don't really use Instagram that often, but you can watch all my Gold Spot videos on YouTube, and you can all the This Is Us that we've released score soundtracks for This Is Us and Marvel's Runaways. All that stuff is available on Spotify and all like the digital services everywhere. So
yeah, definitely, man. And of course, put up links here at lifeofdad.com for people to follow you and check out your great stuff. But thank you so much for taking the time. Really cool interview. Loved your insight, of course, on composing music and, of course, how to get your kids into music with an instrument and all that good stuff. I know I'll be using your advice with my daughters. But Jon and I thank you for that, and continued success with everything you got going in the future, sir.
And to you guys as well. Thanks, Jon. Thanks, Art. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Appreciate it, Sid.
Man, I think I'm going to shed a tear on how good that was.
That was awesome. I love the guy, and I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. Whoever listened to it, I'm assuming you did. If you have any kind of interest in music, it's a fascinating career in general. Like, there's people who, whatever, if you watch any show or any movie, there's people whose whole career is to make you feel one way or the other, excited, anxious, scared, happy, sad. And his job is to do that and through music. So I'm, like you, fascinated by the whole entire process, and then to do it, 3 kids at home, and to figure all that stuff out is awesome. And he shared a lot of other good stuff with us. So thank you, Sid. We'll be talking soon, but I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah, man. Sid, thanks again for taking the time. And also, too, this felt like this interview, part of it felt like behind the scenes, like, when you get a bonus disc of like, the Avengers Infinity War, and they kind of break down like certain scenes and the directors kind of give their take on it, audio commentary. I felt like this was, the music commentary where you had the composer talking about how things work, how things fit in, what's his timeline, and you get that sense of like, all right, this is what he needs to do. This is a highly anticipated show, week in and week out. He's got to deliver. And it's great to see, how he gets that pressure taken care of and hits it out of the park every time with the music. So, and I love the fact that he actually brought a guitar and he's kind of strumming, and you had like the "This Is Us" music going on in there. I'm like, that was so cool, man.
Yeah, it's great. You look behind, and does all those other shows too, and a look behind the scene with that kind of stuff is really cool. And for me, like, I've always wanted to get into playing an instrument, and so I kind of was using it as a personal forum to kind of ask him about getting kids into stuff, how to figure it out. And I love the idea of taking songs that you already like, and he's saying that a lot of them are, pretty simple chords if once you have the basics down. And instead of, we joked about it, but when you learn piano, it feels like everybody just sits there with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for 3 weeks. But if you can break down it maybe to one verse or one part of a chorus of, Katy Perry or whoever, you're playing music that you actually enjoy. And I think that I've taken that to heart and started to kind of look at how to play some of the really cool songs that my kids like. So I don't know if I can figure out Moana's, You're Welcome anytime soon, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Can't wait to hear that.
Thanks so much for listening to the Life of Dad show. You know where to find us, lifeofdad.com, and on Twitter and Facebook.